Okay. Should we start?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Rosita Joseph, Dr. Indira, Geetika Seni, Dr. Satya Sudha. Welcome aboard. We are here today to talk about a very important subject, the relevance of poetry in today's world, in today's social setup. And Dr. Rosita Joseph's book highlights this subject. How important is poetry? Now, I myself, I'm an author, writer, editor, and I write in two languages, Hindi and English. So there is a lot of emotions attached to poetry. When I think as a poet, I think there are so many revolutions which started with poetry. There were so many great poets who started writing to arouse a certain emotion in people who were not able to see world the way it was. There was so much happening around. People were used to getting abused. People were used to getting financially, violated. But when poets came, they used their words, they used their emotions to bring about not only the beauty around in the nature, but also the emotions of self worth and how we can use words and poetry to bring people together. So I think this particular emotion is as true today as it was in those days. We are dealing with certain social problems, and when we talk about social issues, sometimes it feels that we are ranting. But the same thing, when said beautifully in poetry, people listen and they connect. So, with these feelings, I would like to invite our author of the day, a very beautiful poet, Dr. Rosita Joseph. And before she takes on stage, let me tell you about her. Dr. Rosita Joseph is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, UK, a gold medalist and PhD UGC Research Fellow in English Literature from Andhra University. She served as an invitee IASH SSPS Visiting Research Fellow at the University of Edinburgh, UK. She has taught and researched for over 12 years at prestigious institutions including St. Joseph's College for Women and Geetham University, Vishakhapatnam, where she served as head of the MA English program, a consultant editor with Orient Black Swan India. She is also Cambridge Higher Secondary English Facilitator at Santa Maria International School, Hyderabad. She has three books, two edited volumes, two Best Research Paper Awards, and numerous articles in academic journals, popular magazines, and news websites to her credit. To know more about her work, please visit her website, which is www.rositajoseph.com. So there is so much which I have already told you, and there is a lot more for which you will have to visit her website. So I'm honored to welcome Dr. Rosita, take up the stage and tell us more about her book. And I completely give this responsibility to her to introduce her book to us as she, thought about it and wrote it. So, Dr. Rosita, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Asha ji, for that very warm welcome and for that introduction. I'm truly honored and humbled. And once again, I would like to welcome our audience here and especially the distinguished panelists for the day, Ms. Geetika Seneji, Dr. V. Satyasudha, and Dr. S. Indira. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. and it's a very special day. And as Ashaji rightly mentioned, poetry is something that we closely associate with emotions. And so, as a poet, I believe poetry is something both deeply personal and also undeniably universal. And it is this magical quality of poetry that has given me the courage to share my inmost feelings with all of you here. So, since you asked me to speak something about the book, I would just like to very briefly recall how this journey started. My first poem came at the age of 9 or 10 when I had my first glimpse of the Arabian Sea. So, it was a child's expression of wonder and awe at the might of nature. Childish though the attempt was, I think it was my father's unbounded enthusiasm which really took me by surprise. And but yes, the spark was firmly lit. So though I resented the fact that he would ask me to recite those lines whenever we had relatives and friends coming home, I think it was that push which really, lit the spark very, very firmly. And then poetry writing continued through teenage years, but then it was not for other years. It was my own struggles with my emotions, with whatever life threw at me, with whatever I was going through in life. So it was an anchor for me. And then these poems kept, accumulating. And I did nurture a secret dream that one day I would have the courage and the confidence to share it with the rest of the world. And I think finally that materialized through this volume, which was published by Black Eagle Books USA in April 2025. And there are a whole lot of people who are behind this, a lot of teachers, friends, colleagues, students. Um, as I said, this is poetry is not only personal, but it's also something which is universal. So for a book to see the light of the day, it's not just a single person's effort. And I'm truly grateful for all the support that I got along the way. Now, this book has 63 poems gleaned from close to 3 decades of writing, and they have been arranged into different sections, but these sections evolved very naturally. So first is, as I said, it began with love for nature. So the first section in my book is about nature, what nature has evoked in me, and how my response to nature has evolved over time. Then moving on to my encounters with human relationships and emotions, then to spirituality, which has often been tested but then emerged as a strong rock amid all the turbulence of life, and then to the unquenchable thirst for travel and all the places that I have been to and how they have shaped me. And then there's a section called The World, where I look at, the experiences, my own experiences, and relate them to the struggles of fellow human beings, and a section on woman, and then finally survival, where poetry becomes both a record and a means of battling against all kinds of challenges. Now, diverse though these poems may be, they are all bound together by one thread, A Poet's Promise, which is also the title of the book, and which I believe is that every poem is an offering of love to the readers. And through despair and elation, light and darkness, ups and downs, they have the potential to be a kind of catharsis, to be a kind of testament of hope and faith. So, before I conclude, I would just like to say that poetry is born when experience exceeds words, and words just find fulfillment as pointers and maps which guide us to a treasure trove of emotions. And each of us explore and live these emotions in our own ways. That's the beauty of a poem. It's my personal journey, but it can be the personal journey for all of us as well. And so I'm grateful for this privilege of sharing my journey with all of you, a journey that we can experience both individually and together, for it is our journey. So I think, Ashaji, I would like to end here, and then you will have to guide us through the session.
Sure. Dr. Rositta, that was such a beautiful introduction to your book. But at the same time, I would request you to read at least 2 or 4 lines from one of your poems so that we know what we have in store for the entire session.
Well, thank you. And as I always say, asking a poet to choose their poems is like asking a mother to choose between her children. It's very, very difficult. But then I think I would just, read out very quickly the first brief poem that the book begins with, actually, which is called A Poet's Promise. Perhaps it would, be give a good idea for the rest about the rest of the volume. I'll read it out. A poet's promise, one painful line at a time, carved in bitterness, polished with tears, heavy with the unweighable weight of defeat, bruised and bled by the sharpest dagger of ruthless criticism, racing against that undefeated tyrant called time, yet fighting, yet lighting one tiny lamp for the cold darkness of pure despair. Let me depart, birthing these lines, if only you would cradle them. Do not let them fade. Raw, traced, they will return your love a thousandfold. That's a poet's promise.
Such beautiful and profound words. Of course, that's its promise. We see the light and we love spreading that light in thousand hearts around us. That's why poetry is very important. So with that, we move to our first panelist for the day. We have Geetika Seni ji. Geetika Seni is a capable and very fine digital marketer. And before she takes the stage, let me tell you more about her. Geetika is an alumnus of the British Council's Creative Writing Program. She is the author of Love, Lust and Other Revelations, a book of free verse poetry and poetic prose. She has a master's in digital marketing from Digital Vidya. She has worked with 200 plus authors in editing, beta reading, and book marketing projects. In the past, she has been an educational professional and entrepreneur and established and ran a preschool for 15 years. Books, paper, and pens are some of her favorite things. She seeks to inspire others and to read and learn by combining her love for writing, learning, and books. Of course, bringing all the authors together. The best part of being a digital marketer and an author together is getting to read a lot of stories and a lot of poetry. Geetika ji, the stage is all yours. Have you read the book? What do you think? Please share your views.
Yes, a very good morning to all the panelists and to all those who have joined us. Yes, I have read the book, and the topic is, the importance and relevance of poetry, and I don't need to go much into that. All I'd like to say on that would be that people ask me sometimes, or people ask you generally, that what is poetry? And I'd like to say, what is not poetry? Life is the biggest metaphor, and poetry is so much about symbolism. So, poetry is life, and life is poetry. As far as the contemporary part of the topic today, Rositta's book is as contemporary as it gets. It covers several current problems and events and issues that are relevant to the present day, and she highlights them in an obviously in a poetic way, not which one might not seem so much like a rant, like Asha ji said, which is the beauty of poetry, and they get highlighted, and so that we can talk about them, discuss them, debate them, think about them, express our thoughts and opinions and emotions about them. I have read her book. It's been my lucky privilege to come across it, and I will introduce her, give my uh, thoughts on the book by quoting her words itself, which is that I there's so many poems actually that I loved. The one that she started with is one of my favorites. I had already jotted it down as a favorite as soon as I started the book, and that's a big thumbs up to any book. If you like the first chapter and the first poem, got something going right. But anyway, the words, a few lines go. riding on the crests of the tallest minds, diving into the depths of the deepest souls. We marveled and tried to be all a human could be. I think that's what we all, as artists, also are trying to do. And so, with these lines, reading the book, as you can understand, was a humbling, cerebral, thought provoking, soulful, and very all embracing experience. Her poems are beautifully crafted. Another thing that I liked about her poems is that a lot is said in a few words or lines, which is always the beauty of poetry, and she has got that done right. I could relate to a lot of thoughts and feelings expressed, and that's why it is contemporary and it is relevant and it is current. I especially like the poems on spirituality, being human and divine, because that's something I identify with myself as a spiritual aspirant in life. The writing is very emotionally affecting, and but it leaves one very feeling very hopeful. She doesn't shy away from anything, showing you anything, but it still leaves you with a sense of hope. I like her voice; it's very bold, and yet it's honest and vulnerable. Another thing which resonates with me. I of course loved the the alliterative book title and the cover design too. And my favorites, of course, one is The Poet's Promise, another is Change, Ahmedabad, Take Me Back, Deep Brown Ocean, I love that, A Fine Balance, Return to School, Shattered, and Whereby Men Live. These, if I have to, talk of the favorites, otherwise it was a very enjoyable read all through. There were some expressions that especially left some imprints, which are beautiful. It's not easy. So much of writing and poetry is happening. It's not easy to come up with very new metaphors and similes and expressions, but I did find some here. One was like the pus of desire. These are things I have noted because they have been inspiring to think of how she came up with that, and it yeah, and it just it's triggered further thought on that book on that. Another was shipwrecked on thy silent shores. We'll obviously have to read the poems to understand the complete context of that phrase or expression, but even in its own you understand it, which is so powerful. Walks over the soul, which is also very beautiful, and the loveliest rose withers. Uh, there's obviously a lot of good vocabulary, so I learned a few good words too. And all in all, I'm really lucky, and it was a pleasure reading, not just as a reader, which was really a 4.9 on 5-star read for me. The only point I'm deducting is because some of them I felt were too long, and maybe you could maybe make poems in two parts. Maybe I wasn't in a habit of writing and reading brief poetry, but that was the only thing I could take away. Maybe we can consider writing a poem in two parts so that the reader doesn't get too tired with one piece. When there's a lot going on, because there is a lot going on in our pieces, so much to think and say. And as a writer and a poet, of course, I'm very very inspired and really yes. So that was my humble and honest thoughts.
That was beautiful.
Do check out the book.
Of course, I've got the book and I'm reading it and I'm and clearly I cannot, agree with you more. But at the same time, we won't let you go that easy because you have already listed so many poems. I would request you to read at least one small poem or maybe a paragraph or two which is your favorite. Of course, it is difficult to pick and choose the favorite one, but whichever one is closest to your heart, you can read it to us.
Okay. Just give me a second.
Sure.
She's read one of my favorite ones already, Poet's Promise. Yeah. Even I love how the whole book is written, even the poet's note, an offering of love, which is so relatable.
In the meantime, I would like to request the remaining panelists, Satya Sudhaji and Dr. Indraji, Please keep your favorite paragraph ready because I will not let you go without reciting at least one paragraph.
I actually had, I thought, there will be that much time, so I had sort of, you know, quoted a few lines. I thought maybe that would be enough for my time, but
Okay, so in that case, what we can do is, Geetika ji,
so,
we will give
yeah,
you
I'm just
time
looking.
to find your favorite
Yes,
paragraph, and in the
yes.
meantime, I would love to welcome
Hmm.
our next panelist, and that is Dr. Satya Sudha ji. So before Dr. Sudha speak about this beautiful book, let me tell you more about her. Dr. V. Satya Sudha did her MA, MPhil, and PhD from Andhra University, Visakhapatnam. She served as professor in English for 36 years in Maristella College, Vijayawada. She has presented 30 papers in various national and international seminars. She has 25 publications to her credit. She has been the editor of a college magazine and newsletters. She was NAAC coordinator for the first cycle of assessment. She organized a national webinar in December 2020, and now she is retired as HOD of the English department in 2020. So she is enjoying her retired life, but at the same time, inspiring people like us with words and empowering their vocabulary with her knowledge. So, Dr. Satya Sudaji, we are waiting to hear from you about the poet's promise. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Asha. And I also thank the great Indian book tour, and I thank Rosita for giving me this opportunity. It's a pleasure sharing my views on Rosita's book, A Poet's Promise. I was thrilled when she gave me her ink signed copy, and I was very happy attending the book release function too. So now let me jump into my review. Definitely, as Rosita says, her poems are emotions recollected in tranquility. A committed literature student, a well read scholar, an organized speaker, and the best friend one can have, I feel proud of Rosita. And she now stands tall among Indian English women poets. And I've heard her, read her, and now I see her rise to the stature of a poet recognized by the world. A humanist to the core, a romanticist at heart, a social activist who boldly opposes wrongs and supports truth and justice. Rosita has revealed all these shades through her poetry. Her poem Eros touched my heart deeply. It reminds one, of dear ones lost. And the most challenging of her poems is in our literature classes. It's really challenging to write such a lengthy poem, remembering all the literary stalwarts. Her poem Draupadi is the most disturbing one. It goes beyond the epic insult of yore and gives the society a shock of shame, with the violence inflicted on women even today. And Rosita, as a social activist, actually, she has brought to light social activists, philanthropists through her writings, through her columns, and she has introduced men who have put up a bold front during the riots in Bombay. And then these were men who, they forgot religion and faith while supporting the victims of Dharavi. And she showed the sacrifice of Helen Barde. All these efforts of hers in highlighting social activists and philanthropists are seen in her poetry too. One more aspect I realized about Rosita, words flow like a cascade from her pen. In our literature classes is proof of this. Then her poem Return to School reminded me of slightly of Philip Larkin's Church Going. You know, that's a metaphor or whatever I found. And all her poems on different places show her religious tolerance and her broad-mindedness in visiting even Hindu temples and writing and feeling the mystery and the spirituality in Brihadishwara temple and Puri Jagannatha temple. Her prose actually, as Geetika also mentioned, her prose itself, rises to poetic heights. I love her introduction very much, and that also seemed a bit poetic. May God bless Rosita, and hope she releases a second volume of her poems very soon. So, just to read one poem of hers, I like this litany in honor of love. Bitter honey, perfect pain, eagerly awaited suffering, escape from every despair, best of all consolations, worst of all sorrows, embracing all most exclusive, irony of ironies, greatest of illusions, deepest of truths, honesty in the worst, deception of the best, treasured by the poor, poverty of the rich, wisdom among fools, folly of the wise, maturity in youth, youth of old age, endless energy, ceaseless peace, melting stone hearts, freezing fiery minds, fount of life, door to death, making ugly enchanting, and beautiful lifeless, begets paradise, lets loose hell, supreme attribute of the divine, and divine attribute of the human. It goes in paradoxes. So that's what I found very, this is a very well written poem. Then, just to quote a few lines from Draupadi, I like these lines. He could not shoot the revolving fish, he'll hold her in his lap, it's his wish. The rhyming and the meaning and the lines are very wonderfully penned. There are many more lines which we can quote. So I think I'll end my session with this, wishing Rosita all God's blessings upon her. Thank you, Ashaji.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you all.
That is really beautiful. And through you, we also got to learn more about Dr. Rosita Joseph as a very, very capable penicillin.
Yes.
So with that, we have come to our final panelists, and Dr. S. Indira. I would like to invite her to speak about the book, The Poet's Promise, and what she loved the most. And let me tell you more about Dr. Indira. She is an MA, PhD, served as a faculty of English language and literature in various institutions such as Dr. L.B. College, Visakhapatnam, MVGR College of Engineering, Vijayanagaram, St. Joseph's College for Women, Visakhapatnam, and Geetham University, Visakhapatnam. Has 5 decades of teaching experience, published a book on Anita Desai as an artist, a study in image and symbol, creative publishers in New Delhi. Presented and published a number of research papers in various anthologies and journals covering Indian English, Canadian and African literatures. Translated a number of short stories from English to Telugu and from Telugu to English, currently training the teachers and students of various schools in communication skills as well as imparting value education. Reading, writing, serving to the community are the key areas of interest. And what more to say? Once a teacher, always a teacher. 5 decades of teaching and now teacher training and a training in communication to young people. It is a very important thing in today's world when kids don't know how to speak because of the new language which is broken. But still, I will not take much of this stage time. Dr. Indira, I invite you to speak about this beautiful book and our wonderful author.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rosita Joseph, and the entire team for giving me this honor of voicing out a reader's response as a reader to this marvelous piece of work, A Poet's Promise. Just like Dr. Sudha ma'am, I knew Rosita for the past few years and I know a lot about her work as a researcher, as a teacher, who is simply loved by all her students as a social activist, and many more. But time is a big constraint. I would like to talk more about her book and about her poetry because there are so many which are very close to my heart. I don't think I can do justice to all of them, but I tried, I think. Poetry has always been relevant, more so in the world of today, as it offers a valuable counterpoint to the fast paced, often impersonal nature of contemporary life. We all know it provides unique ways of self expression, identifying oneself with a larger reality, coming to terms with one's own self, emotional processing, and preservation of one's culture and humanity above all. Dr. Rosita Joseph's A Poet's Promise invites the readers to participate in her quest to find meaning in a seemingly meaningless life, becoming her fellow traveler, thereby identify himself with the larger reality and thus becoming a more humane individual. Throughout this emotional odyssey, spanning 3 decades, one strong undercurrent is palpable, an unshakable spiritual affinity coupled with an intense self faith. This strong streak of self faith has made her rebel and defy the onslaughts of life and the system we are all in, as injustice, ingratitude, and betrayal strike at her vehemently, causing searing pain within and without. But then, what makes her poems appealing and adorable is the poet's resilience. Look at her promise in Return to School. I quote, "Look at you and make a promise, shall not run away, shall keep haunting you until you engrave my name on your walls. Speak again to your students, telling them all is never lost for those who walk the straight and narrow path in a crooked world." Unquote. While paying tribute to her father, she says in Father's Day, "He alone possesses the power to put the universe under my feet." What a beautiful expression. Never read anything like that. Indeed, this blessing became a reality when the poet realized that she truly made, I quote from our literature classes, an eternal mark somewhere upon the universe. When her literature students, having been guided by her, learned to carve new paths of their own. Through poems like Eros and Chomahalla Palace, the poet makes the reader look beyond the obvious and look upon suffering as another shared reality of the world and not just a personal experience. Actually, I was shocked when I first read Eros, as they were exactly my own feelings and anguish at losing a loved one to a terminal illness. In Chowmahalla Palace, entranced by the glitter, glory, and pomp of the palace, the reader is suddenly jolted out of his complacency and is made aware of the lives of the women of harem who, despite their finery, I quote, lived less than women, less than human, beauty embalmed within beauty. Isn't it haunting for the reader? And yet another poem, The Disrobing of Draupadi, graphically presenting the entire sordid drama of that most heinous, shameful episode, connects the Draupadis of yore to the Nirbhayas of today, victims of the same fate for the sin of being born feminine. Kaveri and the temple at Tanjore stand out as masterpieces in this volume as the poet weaves history, religion, tradition, architecture, and a myriad other strands together. The defiant spirit of the poet finds a kindred soul in the river Kaveri, as she too is a free spirit and can't be claimed by religion or tradition. The entire trajectory of Kaveri as she flows through Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, connecting kings, empires, temples, deities, and Mother Mary at Velankani, is just incomparably fabulous. And the way the poet looks at these universal mothers of compassion, Mother Kaveri and Mother Mary, quenching people's thirst physically and metaphorically, cleansing their sins at the same time, is an identifiable experience to the reader, connecting the topical to the transcendental. While her undying optimism and idealism are evident in poems like Two Worlds and Waiting to be Refuted, her ability to lose herself in nature, as evinced in Moonlight Sonata, is a delightful sensual treat to the reader as he too could capture the rhythms of nature with all its sounds, sights, and smells. The choice of words, the turn of phrases, above all, the highly evocative imagery that paints beautiful word pictures employed in these poems help the reader navigate the life's journey in the midst of innumerable complexities, emerging as survivor. I conclude by affirming that these poems afford the readers a vicarious experience of the whole journey as there are no abstract words or ideas, no esoteric phrases, but only lived in reality, externalized in the form of true feelings, emotions, and empathy that they could easily relate to. Therein lies the irresistible appeal. I would like to end this talk by reciting the last poem of this volume. As an incurable optimist myself, I would like to end this on a very bright and note of hope. It reminds me of my favorite line of Alexander Pope: hope springs eternal in human breast. This is very much in line with that. That whereby men live, night must end, and dazzling sun dawn. Light must shine amid laughter and wine. Wars end and flowers bloom. Peace to prevail and force to fail. Victory, even in the last breath. Believing in new life after death. For hope is that whereby men live. Thank you.
Such a beautiful address, and you definitely ended your address on a positive note. Now, with whatever you said, Dr. Indira, I connected with Dr. Rositta Joseph very closely on two particular things. First, I started writing at the age of 10. My father got to know about it, and on my next birthday, he gifted me a diary. Pen your poems in a diary, don't let them scatter. So that was a very beautiful line that you mentioned in your address, that he solely had the power to bring the world to my feet. It was such a beautiful and touching line. And next, your the poem about Draupadi. I have also penned a poem about Draupadi, which is called Panchali. Today's woman, a strong woman, questioning Draupadi, who was also a very strong woman, why she bared or accepted whatever was happening at that time. So I'm definitely looking forward to read through all of the poems that you mentioned and so many emotions which were kindled in these poems, which were put together so beautifully to touch the reader's hearts. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Rositta again to answer a few questions that we have received from the panelists. So, let me put first question. This question is from Dr. Satya Sudhaji. You have thrown light on several social issues through your writings. Do you aim to bring about any social change using poetry as a tool? So this is a question to you from Dr. Satya Sudhaji.
Thank you, Ashaji, for passing on that question, and thank you, Sudha ma'am, for that question. And before I begin to answer, let me just say two words, a very, very big thank you to all the three panelists. I think they have been very, very generous and very kind in their appreciation. I know I'm just a beginner and I stand on the shoulders of so many giants. So it's a very, very uncommon experience, but I'm very grateful to the Almighty that He has he has brought such wonderful people into my life who have been so kind. Now, having said that, I would like to answer Sudha ma'am's question about social change. So I think we always have this debate over art for art's sake and art for life. It is an unending debate. Uh, Personally, I believe in art for life, while I also have high regard for those who believe in the art for art's sake philosophy. I think it has always been that way, that personal is political and political is personal. So I believe in shared humanity and shared concerns, and the world around me has so much that I wish to change. This is something which happens very, very instinctively. And though I might try to, sometimes adhere to the art for art's sake philosophy, I always end up, in the art for life camp. So I think maybe I'm made like that. I do not know. And definitely in the volume there are a whole lot of poems which protest social injustice, right from the nature poems about the injustice that we inflict upon nature, we are just one part of nature. We have nothing to be to feel superior to the other species. And then, I would just like to read a very, very brief poem here, Animals and Humans. So when we speak about out against injustice, it is not just the injustice that humans inflict on each other, but also what we are doing to Mother Nature. The humanity of animals is infinite, just like the bestiality of humans. The stray cat protecting her fragile kittens all alone on a freezing dark rainy night outside our big warm cozy house. So there are poems like these which juxtapose what nature offers to us and what we offer to nature in return. And then the poems in the section titled The World, most of these are about how we relate to the suffering of fellow human beings. And these poems, if I may read out their names: Avatar, Equalizer, Innocence at 18, Just One Prayer, Manipur, and Memories, Moon Song, Post Truth, Spy versus Soldier, Tiger at Tirumala, Two Worlds, Unfair, Waiting to be Refuted. All of them uh, are, in one way or the other, a protest against things gone wrong. I would like to just read out the poem Post Truth here. Who are we? Walking, talking lies, well dressed, well decked zombies, permanent actors with masks stitched to our souls. Perhaps it's safe to be like this. The light blinds us, clean air can choke us, and pure water could burn us. We no longer need reality. With a soulmate in AI and a philosopher in ChatGPT, the truth has died, laughing at the heights we have reached. So, just a glimpse of where we stand, and all of us stand equally in. And of course, there's a poem Unfair, it's rather dystopian and a bit long, so I would skip reading it. But then that is about how life is, how life is. And so I would like to read a poem where I express the dystopia in the beginning and then end perhaps on a more positive note. Waiting to be refuted. When the river is frozen, how do you swim? Is writing one poem per day enough to fool yourself? Does suffering without cause or limit ensure fame? When medicine turns to poison and every door, window, and crack in the wall close tight, does it make you a philosopher? Or a character in a happy fairy tale? Or the heroine of a rags to riches story? In an unfair world filled with unfairer people, does fairness ever count? Teacher, teach skills, not values. Skills to slay souls and mates. Values lead you to nowhere except deep despair. I would love to be proved wrong for once, please. So I think this is an appeal. And then all the poems about in the section titled Woman. I do not identify as a feminist, I identify as a humanist, but I believe it's very essential that we learn to treat all of us as equal human beings. So we would not need one day only dedicated to glorifying women. So all of us, I mean, a lot of panelists, to my joy, mentioned about the poem on the disrobing of Draupadi. I would only like to read the last stanza here. But listen, men of today, this is a dark, dark day, darker than the darkest night. Justice disrobed, truth raped, from Kaurava Hastinapur to Pandava Indraprasth, from Draupadi to thousand Nirbhayas and Abhayas, do you still enjoy the sight? So, this is about, and one more poem on in this section on women, that is Shackles. Freedom is a distant dream when patriarchy seems immortal, perpetuated fervently by its victims. When each female breath is grudged and dissected, when hard-won rights are paraded as favors, then ruthlessness alone can raise ruthlessness. Some of us must become lesser than women so that all of us can become complete women. And I mean, I think I have answered Dr. Sudha's question that for me, poetry is definitely to do with voicing my concerns about what is happening around me. But then we can never discount the fact that art or poetry is a great medium in itself. And perhaps trying to dream of bringing about social change may be too ambitious. We are all, tiny in this huge ocean. But then I think personal expression and sharing, and through that, these personal change at some level might eventually lead to social change. That's been my dream all along. And though many of them have been very generous in speaking about my concerns about social injustice, I believe this is a very, very humble start. If I can make a change within myself and those around me at a personal level, I think I would be happy with that. And so, Professor Arjuna Parakrama, who penned the critical introduction to this volume, a great scholar, and I'm truly blessed that he, penned the introduction here. And he writes A Poet's Promise as the Fight for Rights. This is the title he gave to the introduction. And it was then that I realized that perhaps this has had some impact, what I have written. Until then, perhaps I too was not so conscious that this is I'm trying to make about some kind of social change. This was something which came out of me very naturally. Thank
So
you.
beautiful. Thank you so much for answering that question, Dr. Rositta. And of course, there are two things which I'm taking from this address. First of all, be the change you want to see. Until we start practicing the change that we want to see in our society, in our environment, nothing can be done. And the second thing, sometimes you have to accept violence to kill the abuser or to the people who are making that violence hostile for other people to live. So yes, some people, some women have to be less women, strong women, so that others can be whole women again. Though personally I feel that every woman is very, very strong. Of course, we have been suffering through patriarchy for a very long time. So some will be breaking the shackles and coming out sooner than others. But ultimately, it has to happen. So with that beautiful answer, we are going to the next question by Geetika ji. She says she's questioned in the poem Just One Prayer. The last lines are to be religious, to be religionless.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. This question I think is from Dr. Indira.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, it is from Dr. Indra. So she says that in the poem Just the Prayer, the last lines to be religionless, stateless, and godless. I understand your antipathy against institutionalized religion and fanatism and the state with its socio-political issues, but godless. It is against a deity or idol worship or the concept of God. If this poem were to be read in isolation, won't the reader misconstrue it being atheist or worse still, nihilistic? What do you think, Dr. Rosita? That's a very different question, very thought provoking question.
Yeah,
So,
I'm so grateful to Dr. Indira for that thought provoking and challenging question. And
yes.
yes. Because I'll just begin by reading out the poem ma'am is referring to. Just one prayer is the title of the poem. Worship becomes woe, faith turns fanatic, religion looks revolting. Hearts, minds, souls, friends, families, skin, bones, lifeblood, dissected, divided, butchered. Then, just one prayer to be religionless, stateless, and godless. I think ma'am noted the last one, godless, and she said, yes, I know religionless we can understand, stateless we can understand, why the expression godless. So if if the rest of the book is read, I mean, and as I have already, I think readers must have guessed that I am a person of deep faith. When I say faith, I do not restrict myself within the boundaries of any one particular system. I believe in faith in the power above and in spirituality. So one of my first poems, which I penned way back when I was a teenager, is Faith Anthem, and that is also included in this volume. And then we read it. It's a very touching expression of faith. And I was really wondering whether I should include it here because it seems extremely personal expression, and some might mistake it for really some kind of religious adherence, but I did include it. So it ends with the line, come once and give me solace, I pray. You are the potter and I the clay, and I know well you are my God. So this is how this particular poem ends. So there is, I come from a background of deep faith and spirituality, which has been tested in many ways, and then I've come to believe through my own personal experiences. But my research journey, uh, especially my postdoctoral research, and here I would like to definitely pay tribute to my research guide, Professor P. Parvati. I think I saw ma'am briefly here in this session, and irrespective of that, her blessings are always with me. And through my journey for my PhD and then following that, my postdoc journey with the help of stalwarts like Meher Pestonji and Arjuna Parakrama and Professor Patricia Jeffrey and others from the University of Edinburgh, my study focused on the experiences of women rights survivors, those who had been the victims of religious extremism and violence. And this was something which shook me to the core. And this was the contrast that I first experienced, coming from associating religion with love and peace to seeing the damage that extremism in the name of religion can cause. So therefore, while I say I am against, giving a lot of priority to one religion or even the state structure or system, why I use the word godless is to emphasize the need for pluralism and to totally reject any sense of superiority or entitlement. Extremism or pride of any kind, even in the fact that we are spiritual or that we are believers, goes against the very idea of divinity. The idea of God has been most misused, unfortunately, and used to commit the worst crimes against humanity. Hence, I wish to emphasize the fact that even atheists and Gnostics need to be embraced and respected. Nothing goes beyond unconditional love because God is love. And where there is no unconditional love, there can be no God. It's only hypocrisy and self deception. So, it is in this context that I said that if people are using God and religion and state and faith and spirituality and belief as an excuse to commit even the slightest violence, then it's better not to have any of those ideas. So I hope that answers the question, and I would also like to pay tribute here to Miss Shaheen Kadri. I saw her joining the session briefly. If anybody can be a social worker and a social activist, hats off to Shaheen ma'am. I met her during my fieldwork research with the women in the slums of Mumbai. And she is somebody who lost everything during the 1992-93 riots, built her life from scratch, and rose to become a great icon of hope and inspiration to thousands of women and girls, cutting across all barriers of religion, caste, creed. So these are the women who really inspired me, and then I have dedicated one poem in the volume to these women also who received hate and oppression and suppression from within their community and outside their community in the name of religion, but then who only returned unconditional love in return and built up families and communities. So positive. So,
Such a beautiful,
thank you.
Thank you so much for this beautiful explanation. And of course, the feeling and what you take from the religion that you follow and your complete thought process towards the divinity is a very personal thing, which you have beautifully mentioned in your poem. And I hope that after this explanation, we will be able to see it in a different light. So, with that, we have come very close to the closing of this session. But before that, we have one more question from Geetika ji. Poetry is deeply personal and thus becomes universal. But do you ever find yourself removing or downplaying the original words, expressions, and thoughts because of the fear of being seen too much or saying too much? Perhaps while editing or rewriting a poem, who wins honestly? Who wins honesty or worldliness? Or a compromise is reached? This is such a difficult question for every poet. How would you answer it, Dr. Rose?
Thank you so much, Geetika ji. This is, I think, the dilemma of every artist. And Asha ji, Geetika ji, such accomplished artists in the. I think we can very easily identify with this fact. But we would also agree that no genuine artist can wear a mask, no matter however hard they try. So personal always becomes political and vice versa. And for me, my writing is my only means of protest. It keeps my conscience alive. Like painting, poetry is, I believe, a great code. And you can say so much and yet use a whole lot of poetic devices like symbolism, understatement, irony, and satire and imagery. So you can say too much and yet not be hanged for it, because poetry is always open to subjective interpretation. And so, yes, that's the beauty of the medium. Now, my personal poems are very raw, and perhaps I tried to keep my poems as they were, as much as possible when I first drafted them. But of course, they definitely go through a process of editing, and I have toned them down not out of any kind of inhibitions or fear, but to see that it doesn't sound too extremist or too biased or something which takes away from the emotion itself. So that has been the process, especially in the section dedicated to woman, love, and then the fear of failure. So very, very raw poems, but I have tried to tone them down a bit so that, I do not want to be overstating anything, even to the least, because as I said, words are very powerful and we need not waste words. Every single word needs to be given its due value. And when I come to the socio-political poems, they are very, very direct. Maybe something speaking about the situation at Manipur, where so many were massacred, and then you have great Christmas celebrations in the halls of power, Christmas without Christ. Or Tiger at Tirumala, where the pilgrim, one of a poor child from a poor family climbing the way to the hilltop, is attacked and killed by a tiger. But I feel that perhaps nature has been much kinder to the kid, who, upon growing up, would have seen far worse. And then two worlds, where I speak about teaching children from very elite backgrounds and also teaching children from underprivileged backgrounds and the difference that I see there. So these poems I believe perhaps if I had written in prose, I would not have so much access to the power of poetry, because poetry in itself is a very, very powerful medium. So, poetry for me is definitely resistance and my anger against corruption, against what I've experienced in my own life and in the lives of, seen in the lives of others, against patriarchy, plutocracy. Uh, I believe literature is always a voice of the voice for the voiceless. That's my personal opinion. And I would like to end by reading this poem, Rebel. I think that poem indicates whatever maybe I have tried to tone down or tried to, say indirectly. This is something very direct. I do not claim the right or the luxury to write well crafted poetry. I was not educated at the right places, right within quotes, nor did I rub shoulders with the right poets blessed by the right mentors and right publishers. I have been wrong all my life and proud of it. Now, due to lack of time, I would not go through the entire poem. I would just go look at the last part of it. In between teaching and cooking dinners and working online, offline, overtime, and doing the dishes, and being looked down upon for the sin of being feminine, some of what I have experienced and seen and loved and feared will become part of my blood and reappear as the words in my wrong poems, perhaps ignored by the right scholars, but certainly smelling of the untamable pride of wrong and wronged women. And before I end, may I pay my most humble tribute and my respects and my gratitude to my beloved mother who is attending this session. If I have been a rebel and if I have been a strong woman, it's because of her. I learned the language in her lap, and I have been inspired by her tremendous courage and resilience and dignity through all the ups and downs of life. Thank you, Mommy. And thank you so much for this question, Geetika ji. Thank you.
Very beautifully and honestly answered. Thank you.
Beautiful. Now, I just lost internet for a moment, so I just want to inform you, Dr. Rosetta, we have received one more question in the chat, and I'll just read it out to you. Do you think that you are channeling something beyond your individual consciousness, that is voicing the divine voice in your poems? This is a question by Sini Jacob.
Thank you, Sini, for that question. That's a very deep question, and I'll just read it again. Do you think that you are channeling something beyond your individual consciousness, that is voicing the divine voice in your poems? Well, if that is happening, then I would say I am truly fortunate. I cannot claim any kind. We are very, very mortal, very, very weak human with a lot of frailties. And, but we are all instruments of the divine. And I believe that we are just channels and we need to flow, let that divine energy flow through us. And then it is for you as the readers to judge. If you feel that, then I would be very, very blessed and honored. I cannot say that for myself. It is those who read it, those who experience it. I have only tried to be very, very honest. And definitely, we are all channels of a divine energy or force which runs through us. As I said, even if we try to run away from it, we are again brought back to the same thing. So that is destiny, that is fate, that is the way we respond. But then I only wish, whatever you call it, divine, goodness, the power above, humanity, let that triumph, let that prevail through all of us. And I think that's what our mission as artists should be, as writers should be, is my humble belief. So it is up to you, Sini. If you feel that way, I'm very happy.
What a beautiful answer, Dr. Rosetta. Of course, we are all channels, we are all mediums for the supernatural power, the supreme power to channelize what he or she wants. So there is again a very question whether the supreme is he or she. So let's not get into that. Whoever is the supreme power, we are just the mediums for them to do what they want to see, the change they want to see. And you have been really gracious with your words to get that power on to your book. And we can feel that already, Dr. Rosita. This was such a fulfilling session, and we have come to the end of this session. I can see no more questions, and Cindy has thanked you for your answer, Dr. Rosita. I would like to thank Dr. Satya Sudha, Geetika ji, Dr. Indra ji to come here and speak about this beautiful book and introduce us to the part of Dr. Rosita we were not aware of. So before we end the session, I would hand over to Dr. Rosita if she wants to, share something with the guests, with the panelists, and then we will say our goodbyes for the day.
Thank you so much. I know we have exceeded the time, but well, some things do happen which is beyond our control. And I would just like to end by thanking everybody, thank the Almighty, of course, for all this. And my thanks to the organizers of this event, the Great Indian Book Tour and the Aspiring Authors Alliance of India, and Mr. Prashant ji, who is the force behind all this. Thank you so much. I would like to thank Kubra, who's been working hard behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Ms. Kubra, for all your efforts. And of course, Asha ji, for being such a wonderful host. You have put all of us so much at ease, and we felt we have known you for such a long, long time. And I thank Geetika ji, Dr. Sudha, Dr. Indira, all accomplished artists, writers, scholars. Thank you so much for your precious time and your guidance all through. And then, of course, family and friends, definitely my parents, my younger sister, my husband, all of them pillars of strength, always supporting me. And each and every person here in this audience, and definitely my publishers, Black Eagle Books, and all the scholars who wrote the foreword to the book, the introductions, the appreciation, all these people have been pushing me. Had it not been for them, this book would not have seen the light of the day. And a very, very big thank you to all the audience who have been here all through and listened to us so patiently. Unfortunately, due to lack of time, we could not take more audience questions, but please feel free to email me, to get in touch. I will be happy to share with you and to learn further from you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. And with that, a very big thank you and goodbye to all of you. So we will keep meeting again for such a beautiful session. For now, it's time to go.
Thank you.